in the forgotten corner of a small town called Ashford, when the rest of the world was warm and sleeping. One window stayed lit. Behind that window sat a 12-year-old boy named Mason Reid, studying by the light of a single candle, because their electricity had been cut off 3 weeks ago. There was no table, no chair, no bookshelf, just a thin mattress, 3 old textbooks, and a boy who refused to stop. On the cracked wall above him hung one photograph, a happy family of 3. A mother, a father, and a small laughing boy. The edges were torn, the colors had faded. But Mason looked at it every single night before sleeping, because that photograph was all he had left of them. 3 years ago, on a rainy November night, Mason's parents, David Reid and Anna Reid, had been in a car accident on the highway outside Ashford. Mason had sat alone on a cold hospital bench for 6 hours. When the doctor walked toward him, removing his glasses slowly, Mason already knew. He did not scream, he did not collapse. He just sat very still and felt the whole world go quiet around him. With no relatives willing to take him in, Mason was placed in a small government-supported house on Gravel Lane, Ashford. The neighbors watched him from behind their curtains. "Poor boy," they whispered, "all alone. No future." Mason unpacked his one bag, old clothes, 3 books, and the photograph. He placed the photograph on the wall first, before anything else. He looked at his parents and made a silent promise. "I will not waste what you gave me." The next morning, Mason walked to school alone. At school, everyone had friends, groups, and lunch partners. Mason had none. He ate alone every day. A small plain meal he had prepared himself. Some students called him Ghost Boy, because he was always alone and always silent. Mason heard every word and wrote in his notebook instead. That notebook was not a diary, it was not schoolwork. It was full of business ideas, rough sketches of shops, money calculations, and plans that a 12-year-old had no business making. Mason had found an old business magazine in the school library, dog-eared and forgotten on the bottom shelf. He read it every lunch break for 2 weeks straight, while other kids played and laughed around him. One article stopped him completely. 10 people who built empires from nothing. He read it 4 times. Then he closed the magazine, looked up at the sky, and said out loud to no one, "Then so can I." At 13, Mason started his first hustle. Every morning before school, he collected old newspapers from his neighborhood. He sold them to a recycling shop on Mill Road owned by a gruff old man named Mr. George Finch. George paid almost nothing, but Mason showed up every single morning without fail. One rainy morning, soaking wet, Mason arrived at the shop as usual. George stared at this drenched boy and said gruffly, "You are either very dedicated or very stupid." Mason wrung the water from his sleeve and smiled. "I prefer dedicated, sir." George turned away, hiding a smile behind his gruff face. At 14, Mason added a second hustle, weekend car washing in his neighborhood, bucket, sponge, and pure determination. He did not do a quick job. He made every car shine like a mirror. Customers started giving him extra, not because he asked, but because his work demanded it. Every coin went into an old tin box under his mattress. He counted it every Sunday night, seriously, like it was $1 million. He drew a savings chart in his notebook, updating it every week, watching the numbers slowly climb. At 15, Mason discovered the internet at the school library. Every free period, every lunch break, he watched free business tutorials, coding lessons, and marketing videos. The school librarian, Mrs. Carol Bennett, noticed him after weeks of observation. One afternoon, she placed a stack of books on his table without a word. Business, marketing, finance, entrepreneurship. Mason looked up at her, surprised. She simply said, "I have been watching you for weeks. These belong with you." Mason held those books to his chest like they were gold, because to him they were. At 16, using money from his tin box and knowledge from his books, Mason started a small phone repair service from his tiny house on Gravel Lane. He had taught himself through YouTube videos and library books. His tools were basic. His focus was absolute. He made a handwritten sign and stuck it on his door. Mason's Phone Repair, cheap and fast. His first customer was a nervous boy from school named Tyler. Cracked screen, no money. Mason fixed it in 40 minutes, Tyler told everyone. Within 2 weeks, there was a small queue outside Mason's door every evening after school. At 17, his repair business was earning more than most adults in his neighborhood. He hired 2 school friends, teaching them what he knew, paying them fairly. The same students who had called him Ghost Boy now came to him with respect. Mason held no grudges. He simply nodded and got back to work. On graduation day, every student had family cheering in the crowd. Mason walked across that stage alone. No one cheered for him from the seats, but he looked up at the sky and smiled. "This one's for you, Mom. This one's for you, Dad." At 19, Mason rented his first proper shop on Main Street, Ashford, Reid Tech Solutions. He installed the sign himself. Within 1 year, Reid Tech Solutions had 6 employees and a waiting list of customers. The local Ashford Gazette ran a story. The lone boy of Gravel Lane who built a tech business at 19. The same neighbors who had whispered no future read that article in silence. At 22, Mason expanded into digital marketing and app development. He now led a team of 20 young people, many of them from broken homes just like his. He trained every one of them personally, because he knew what it felt like to have nobody teach you anything. At 25, Mason Reid owned a full technology company called Reid Empire Digital with offices in 3 cities. His company name was intentional. He had always known, I was always building an empire. I just had to survive long enough to finish it. One quiet Sunday morning, Mason drove back to Gravel Lane. He stood outside that tiny broken house where he had studied by candlelight. He placed his hand on the cracked wall, the same crack, but a completely different man. He looked up at the window where his candle used to flicker, and he whispered, I kept my promise. That same year, Mason opened the Reid Youth Center in Ashford, a free learning and skills center for orphaned and underprivileged children. Children learned coding, business basics, and life skills, everything Mason had taught himself alone by candlelight. He sat with them personally every Saturday morning. One little boy looked up at him with the exact same fire Mason had once carried alone. Can someone like me really make it? Mason knelt down to his level, looked straight into his eyes, and said, "Someone like you is exactly who this world is waiting for." Mason Reid had no family cheering for him, no money, no connections, no safety net. He had nothing but a candle, and a promise he made to 2 people who could no longer hear him. But that candle never went out. And today, in his biggest office, on the most visible wall, hangs the same photograph. Same torn edges, same faded colors. Because Mason Reid never forgot where he came from, and he never forgot why he started. If this story moved you, share it with someone who is fighting alone right now. Tell them, the ones who build alone build the strongest.